what could be boring about spending your time finding interesting questions and then going and answering those questions, finding the answers to the things that intrigue you? It's the opposite of boring. My name's Ian Haig. I teach contextual and theoretical studies in the design school here at LCC, and I'm also a writer and a researcher. So my main research interest is comics and graphic novels, and I've done quite a wide-ranging set of research. My main area of interest in that field is materiality and the senses and the way that we understand media, particularly comics, as physical objects. So how they can communicate to readers, how they can influence people through the physical encounter. That means things like book design. If we're thinking about the sensory, we might think about something like the way that we're affected by, say, the smell of the paper. That might bring back nice nostalgic memories. And there's various different ways in which creators integrate the senses into their works, which can be sometimes quite strange, sometimes quite conventional, but often adds a different layer of experience to that reading. So that's my kind of main area of interest, and that was explored in my first book, Comics in the Senses. And now I'm developing that research into the digital context. So recent publications include 2 volumes on violence in comics. These were edited collections which brought together many different authors. They started life as a conference that I organised in 2014. The first volume, representing acts of violence in comics, explores how comics depict violence and the ways in which violence is physically present within comics. So we might think there of something like Dennis the Menace getting whacked by his dad's slipper in the Beano. And then the second volume is contexts of violence in comics, and that really explores the ways in which contextual frameworks, things like legislation, might prompt the depiction of violence, or they might inhibit the depiction of violence. In the context of a war, for example, it might be in the government's interest to use and depict violence as a necessary good thing for a nation. That might not be so desirable in different contexts. A few years ago, I also edited a book on representations of multiculturalism in comics and graphic novels, and that was a really interesting project because comics is quite a multicultural form in its makeup. It combines cultures of literature, cultures of visual arts, cultures of design in various different ways where they don't necessarily integrate with each other, but they do in some senses remain kind of contested grounds, and the relationships are open to negotiation. So that was a really interesting project because it brought together academics to think about the ways in which multiculturalism is present in the narratives of comics, but also in the physical form of comics. The research culture here at London College of Communication is quite a diverse one. It's interesting because I sit on a couple of the committees and get to see quite different types of research that's happening across the different schools. In the design school, we've got hubs like the Design Activism Research Hub, we've got the Comics Research Hub, and so we are thinking about quite a wide range of things. So the Comics Research Hub was established here at LCC in 2018, and since then we've really undertaken quite a wide range of activities. There's a lot of different areas of interest that are covered, very early career researchers right up to people like Professor Roger Sabin, who has been essentially at the forefront of comics studies for several decades now. I think what's interesting about the Comics Research Hub here is that there's a real engagement with the social, the cultural aspect of those works, and it's not necessarily following a tradition of literary studies or the close reading approach, although that is sometimes done, but it's always being situated within the kind of cultural context in which these things are being produced. So that gives a slightly different way of thinking about it, and being an arts university offers ways into some of those traditions that are perhaps not so widely covered by existing research. So things like art and design, production techniques, the physical aspects of these things can be quite easily and interestingly covered within this context. One of the great strengths of LCC in terms of research is the fantastic range of material that's collected here in the archives and special collections. So we've got collections of quite mainstream comics, but we've also got a range of Underground Comics is a fantastic collection called the Les Coleman Archive. Every time I speak to the archivists, they mention some other set of works that I hadn't realised was there, but actually is this whole range of different material. I think what's interesting about LCC is, in a sense, it's quite a large university. It's got access to a lot of resources. There's quite a high level of activity happening. But because the community is so well connected, it feels like a small university. It feels like people can get things done. And I think having that balance of the large and the small is really valuable.